failures happen to even the best of us. Today's video we're going to be discussing my recent failures and what I've learned from them. Hey guys, T2 Titan Preparedness, welcome to the channel or welcome back. Now, as we all know, this winter has been interesting, crazy to say the least. Right? We had that boom cyclone come down from Canada, swept cold weather all across America. Then we had, at least in my area, another cold snap about a week or so later. I'm going to be honest with you guys, my preps failed me. My winter preps, they failed. And all these ideas and all these things that I had in my head that I would do in case of winter, in case of a winter power outage, in case of winter storms, went up in smoke. So for today's video, I do want to discuss how my preps failed me, what we did during the situations, and what I've learned from this whole situation. So to talk about my winter prep failure, we have to start in summertime. You see, back during the summer, our HVAC system wasn't doing the best it could. The hottest day of the year, our AC decided, yeah, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to work anymore. We called the guy came out, he takes a look at it, and he says, well, it's the fan. The fan is not blowing the air into your house. It's working, but it's not blowing the air into the house. He said, man, it's going to be about $1,000. Or you can just press this little button every time it shuts off, and, you know, that might last you a month, might last you 6 months. It's not going to cost you anything. So what did we do? We pressed that little button. So when the bomb cyclone came through, right, it swept cold air all the way from Canada down into America. And ladies and gentlemen, it got frigid cold around here. Again, we're having issues with the HVAC system, which is also our heating system. Every time this little breaker inside of the unit has issues, you go out, you press the button, it basically resets it. It's basically a breaker for the unit. So, cold snap comes in, that breaker finally says, you know what, I'm tired of being reset, I'm tired of you coming out and pressing me, and it finally just gives up. It finally breaks. So this thing that we should have fixed 6 months ago decided that it was going to crap out on us the coldest day of the year. Well, of course, that was during Christmas time. And not a lot of stores are open on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, the day after Christmas. So we had to wait about 4 to 5 days before we could get this little $20 replacement part taken out and put the new one back in. So for 5 days, we relied on our propane backup wall-mounted space heater. I've talked on this channel a million different times about my fuel and my heating sources. We have a propane HVAC heating system. We also have a wall-mounted propane heater in case the power goes out. We also have a kerosene heater. So we had options. We had backup options. One thing that I kind of overlooked was heating when you have power. It was a weird combination, because most times I think, okay, I have to heat my house when I don't have power. That is what the wall-mounted space heater is for, and it's going to run, at least turn on, whether I have power or not. In this situation, I had power, I just didn't have my heater, my main heater. So we relied on that wall-mounted propane space heater, which is great. It did a great job during the day. But at nighttime, not so much. If you know anything about space heaters, right? Natural gas, propane, space heaters, even electric space heaters, they heat a space. And if you shut a door, anything past that door is no longer getting heat. So my 4 kids piled up in bed with my wife because I was at work. Santa's coming, so all of them were at my house, and they slept in the bedroom. You know what happens when you shut the door and the heater is over here and the door's right here? the heat doesn't go through the door. So their bedroom was cold, at least initially, until they all piled in bed and, you know, started sweating to death. But all the other bedrooms were also cold. Because again, space heater only heats a certain space. So my wall-mounted space heater for the living room was nice and toasty. But the bedroom, the bathrooms, their room that they all were piled up sleeping in got pretty chilly. Because we did not have the central heat blowing through the house. Again, I was prepping to lose power. If we lose power during the wintertime, I will move everyone into the living room, we'll leave that space heater on, and that living room will be nice and toasty while we have no power. But we had power. So everything else was operating as normal. It was running as normal. The kids were watching TV, the kids are playing in their bedroom, you know, everyone's using the bathroom. We're still operating like normal, we just don't have any central heat. So the bedrooms, the bathrooms, their room, everywhere but the one room is cold. Now to remedy this situation, we went out and bought some electric space heaters, right? Problem solved, no harm, no foul. That was not the big one. Skip forward 2 weeks, right? The first week of January. It gets cold again. Now, not nearly as cold, but we do have another cold snap. And it was weird. We went from 0 degrees to like 50 degrees to like 12 degrees. I showed you guys earlier last year that I bought a spare 100-gallon system to hook up to my 250 system, meaning that I had 350 gallons of propane. I bought it from a guy I work with. He said, hey, listen, use the 100-gallon tank as your backup tank, as your spare tank. Whenever we needed it, whenever the 250 tank got low, we would go turn the 100-gallon tank on, and we would have more propane. That might last us another month, couple weeks, whatever, but it gave us enough time to be able to call a company, they come out, fill the tanks up. So again, the first issue was heat not coming through the main HVAC system. I got the propane mounted wall heater on standby. It works. Well, this one, the regulator on the new propane tank failed. It went out. So now I have no propane going to my house. So I don't have the main unit anymore, again, but I also don't have that wall-mounted space heater anymore because there's no fuel going to it. A regulator controls gas going from the tank to wherever it's going. When my big 250 tank ran out and the regulator ran out on the smaller tank, it was like I ran out completely. Even though the 100-gallon tank was absolutely full, it was basically like it wasn't. So now, just like the first example, I have no heat coming from my main HVAC unit. But also, my backup system that I've talked about a million times also does not work. So in the first example, I was able to heat up the living room, and yeah, maybe not heat up the bedrooms, but that heat was at least in the living room. Well, now it's another cold snap, and I can't heat up anywhere. I can't heat up the main house, I can't heat up the bedrooms, I can't heat up the living room, I can't heat nowhere up. We still have power, and so we have electric space heaters, one in the bathroom and one in the bedroom, but that's not a lot of space, right? Especially for 5 people, 4 kids and my wife, to roam about the house. It got down to 51 degrees in my house. Now, if you've watched this channel for a minute, you're probably thinking, well, you talk about kerosene heaters all the time, right? You said you had one. You even showed one. Yeah, I pulled out the kerosene heater. The problem was, kerosene is a very slow heating process. You light it, it pumps out heat, but it takes forever to heat up an area. It did fine when I would light it, but again, you gotta think, I'm not the type of person to leave a kerosene heater going at nighttime or whenever I'm not there. So the only time that I did use it was like an hour and a half at times. Whenever I'd come in from work, I would light it and kind of stand over it for a minute or two. But again, you know, it's got to build this area. It's not going to heat up over here and then warm up a bedroom that's across the house. It's just not going to work that way. It heats, and that heat slowly expands. Now, if you have a shop, if you have a building, or if you had, 12 hours to run this thing, yeah, it probably could have kept the house 60, 61 degrees, comfortable for me at least. But I wasn't willing to light it and then walk away from it, or light it and then go to sleep because I was working night shift. So instead, my wife and kids up and abandoned me for the week, and they went over to her parents' house. Now, luckily, they only live like 5 miles away, so it's not that big of a deal. But what if they didn't? What if I'm like many of y'all, and I live across state, or across country, or across county from her parents, my neighbors, my friends, whomever, where my family could go to. Because I came home, I grabbed my camping sleeping bag, which is 0 degrees, and I laid on the couch, right? It didn't bother me that it was freaking cold in my house, 51 degrees. I slept like a damn baby. But my kids, right? And so when you have kids, you have to think, what about them? Because sure, you can survive the apocalypse, and you can survive the cold weather, and you can do all this, but can they? Probably not, right? Especially if you have young kids. If they were teenagers, hey, wrap up in blankets, I don't care. But they're young kids. If you just brought your newborn home and your power's out and you don't have heat in your home, you're not going to stay in that position. You can survive it, but that newborn, that toddler, that 4, 5, 6-year-old is not going to do the same as you. Hopefully you understand that. So again, my failures were my HVAC system not working, my heating system not working, my backup heating system not working, and the backup to the backup system not doing a good enough job fast enough. So yeah, it's been an experience the last 2-3 weeks. Now luckily, put a new regulator on, got the other tank filled up, hey, we're good to go now. But again, I wasn't expecting to still have power, but not have heat, not once, but twice in one season. But it happens. And those are the things that I personally forgot about. It never once did it cross my mind, hey, you're going to lose heat, but not power. You're going to have power, but you're going to all have to pile up in one room and use a bathroom space heater to keep you warm. Over my head, you lost me, because I've always had a backup system. Well, that backup system failed because the primary system failed. And then the backup to the backup also failed because I didn't give it enough time. Again, the kerosene heater would have done fine enough, but I'm not willing, if I'm not awake, if I'm not there, I'm not willing to let it run. Also, kerosene is $7 a gallon, so it would have cost me like $30 a day to keep my house warm. I don't think I'm willing to do that either, unless it's life or death. Whole different situation. So, what have we learned? Keep an eye on things. The HVAC system going out in the summertime, we should have replaced that part as soon as we knew about it. Personally, I don't have $1,000 to spend on it, but the cheaper, smaller part that I could have replaced, I should have done it as soon as it went bad. Right? That's why I have vehicles sitting out in my yard that are still broke, because I've not gotten to them yet. Whether because of funds or because of time, they're just there. I know what parts I need for them. I just haven't done it. And that's the exact same way with the HVAC system. I could have replaced that part 6 months ago and at least not had this first issue. Keep an eye on the weather. Obviously, the cold snap that happened was a huge event. I was going to make a video about it, but like 90% of the country was affected by it. And so everybody, it wasn't just a small area, it was everybody going out, buying the propane tanks, buying propane, the natural gas, the kerosene, whatever the backup heating sources. And so I bet whether you're in South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Wyoming, Tennessee, Nebraska, wherever, chances of you finding heating equipment during that time frame would have been slim to none. Luckily, we had our stuff filled up prior to, but it didn't really matter, did it? Because it didn't help us. test your systems, your backup systems, and all of your plans. Everyone has this amazing plan that they're going to bug out on foot 20, 30, 40 miles a day with this 100-pound pack. But how many people have actually put that pack on and went for a trip? I have, and that's why I dropped a bunch of weight in my pack. Because I carried the 60-pound pack and it was absolute garbage. So now I carry the 30-pound pack. Doing test runs of your system. That is the bug out system, right? The bug out pack, the bug out plan. What about the at-home plan? Do you have a plan for when you have power but no heat? When you have heat but no power? When you have none of each? Do you have a plan? Do you have a plan in place? Have you tested that plan? Because I can tell you, we've never tested having no heat but having power. We tested having no power but heat, but you know, not the reverse flip. Think about Texas last year. A lot of those people had no idea that the natural gas was going to freeze on their lines. So they said, nah, if we lose power, we still have heat. Until they lost power and heat, and then they had nothing, right? So think, could this happen? What is the next thing that could happen that can make matters worse? So have an evac plan. That is the next thing. I mentioned that my wife and kids packed up. They went to the in-laws' house. That's like 5 miles away. Not that big of a deal. The in-laws had power. They had heat, right? They stayed at grandma's for the weekend. Cool. But what if they lived across country? What if they lived across state? What if they lived 2 hours away? Is my wife and kids going to pack up and go 2 hours away and spend the weekend 2 hours away? Probably not. So then what, right? We could have rented a hotel. I don't think any person that I know of would want to take us in for more than 2-3 days at a time. But, you know, at least a hotel, yeah, it'd be expensive, but it's a plan. It's an idea. What if this was a major power outage? Let's say my in-laws lost power. Let's say I lost power. Then what? Right? We can't just skip to a hotel because everyone else is skipping to the hotel, or the hotel doesn't have power. My plans failed me. And so because of that, I'm having to think, you know, this is 3D chess. We're no longer playing checkers. We're getting in deep. And these are things that you don't think about until your plans fail. But I wanted to put this video out here just to show you guys that us YouTube preppers are not perfect by any means. I know there's a lot of preppers who never show their failures. Maybe because they never test their stuff. Or because they're scared, because they don't want to show failure. I'm proud to admit, you know, hey, it happened. Now I can learn from my mistakes. So guys, if your plans have ever failed, let me know down in the comment section below. That's all I got for today. I gotta go do some more learning. That's all I got. T2 out.